Hi everyone. I'm just going to get into it. First, I doff my cap for you. I just want to get into this issue between Nigeria and the United States. The President of the United States of recent called out the Nigerian government to do something about the mass killings of Christians in Nigeria, and implied with a soft threat that if nothing is done about this, that the U.S. will get involved in order to save faith, the Christian faith, and save, Christians in Nigeria. So, why am I even doing this? Why am I getting involved? Why do I have to say something? First, there's been a discussion as to, is there really mass killings of Christians in Nigeria? Quite a lot of people are denying such, happenings, and some people are in the middle. Well, let's look at what the data says, and you decide. By the way, I'm speaking as someone who comes from a part of Nigeria where I have seen relatives, village aunties and village uncles, pack their things and return back from the northern part of Nigeria, because we are from the south. Return back from the northern part of Nigeria because of ethno-religious killings. And I have to say ethno-religious killings because it's always a mix of killing certain ethnic groups or targeting certain ethnic groups who are predominantly Christians. But then I'm even talking about a situation where there's a migratory perspective, where people move from the south to the north, and then when these unfortunate incidences happen, they have to return home. Some have to return home and are forced to create business back to where they come from, thereby denying them the freedom which the Constitution of Nigeria grants to them, that they could live peacefully in any part of Nigeria. So I have witnessed that. Now, there's also another dimension. You have Christians in the northern part of Nigeria who have no place to run to because they are living right in the north, and they have to deal with jihadists, Islamic insurgents, and all that, who are anti-Christian or whatever you want to call it. But I'm not here to make judgments. I'm a Nigerian, but I think it's really, really disingenuous for any Nigerian to want to give the impression that Christians are not being targeted in Nigeria. In the northern part of Nigeria, they are being targeted. The bigger question is it a government endorsed killing? Is it a Nigerian government endorsed or collaborated assault on people who happen to be Christians when these things happen? There are people who hold that opinion. I do not. But I do know that in Nigeria, we tend to play the religious card, play the ethnic card. I mean, think of it. To be president of Nigeria, you're already told it has to be Muslim, Christian, what do they normally call it? Muslim Christian ticket. Muslim Christian ticket, like you're getting into a train, and that train must be such that it has to be, for it to move, it has to be Muslim Christians. The current president, he was criticized for coming out with a Muslim ticket. So I think that establishes that there is something about religion in Nigeria that isn't really, really appetizing. And with that said, let's look into the data. In 56,000 people were killed in Nigeria's ethnic and religious violence, and this was during the period of 2023. A report that was released by This report was released by the, want to be specific, let's know what we are dealing with here. So this was a report released by an organization in Great Britain, and I know some people are going to be saying, hey, you don't trust these people. I'm going to come down to that in a moment. So this was a report that was sometime released by, in fact, let me give you another report before I come back to that one. The Association of Catholic Information in Africa. Association of Catholic Information in Africa released a report in August 2025, recently, that over 7,000 Christians were massacred in Nigeria by jihadists in the first 7 months of this year. So get that first. And this report that was released by, or this announcement that was released by Association for Catholic Information is based on a report by International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law. Again, International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law. In the first 7 months of 2025, over 7,000 Christians were killed. I know the report says massacred, and people are going to fight over whether it is a massacre or just killing. Keep the massacre. They've got some, it's a legal terminology that can be deconstructed in various ways. But the issue here is about lives lost. So over 7,000 Christians were killed by jihadists in the first 7 months in Nigeria in 2025 alone. Now, that is important for us to keep that in mind. Then we go to in 2024, a report found that ethnic and religious violence in Nigeria claimed lives of nearly 56,000 in Nigeria over 4 years. So this was 2024 report that was looking at the 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and came out with this number, 56,000 people killed over a 4-year period. And the report was published by the Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa. They also found that more than 11,000 incidents of extreme violence from October 2019 through September 2023 happened. We're talking about incidents. More than 11,000 incidents, not the number of people killed. So you can imagine how many are lost within an incident. Now, why is a scholar within the land area talking about religious conflict? Ladies and gentlemen, that's because there's also a land perspective to this. Some of these religious conflicts, which I call ethno-religious conflicts because it relates to certain ethnic groups or has ethnic dimension to it, which it has the core land perspective, where cattle rustlers and cattle headers who are jihadists or of the Muslim extraction, or particularly of the Fulani ethnic extraction, engage in ethno-religious killings in order to get access to land for pastoral grazing. So there is a land perspective, and I do not know this data that's been presented here, when they are disaggregated, which one, relates to direct religious conflict and the ethno-land related conflict. And I say this because I come from the southeastern part of Nigeria. When I say I come from there, that means that's where I'm born. And I have lived in the south part of Nigeria. I've lived in the north central part of Nigeria as well. But when I say I come from the southeast, what that means in terms of my narrative here is that I tend to get more information there because I have a broader family network in those areas, and I'm part and parcel of that system. And I'm talking about a system that is almost down the bottom part of the country. And cattle rustlers, cattle headers, Fulani herdsmen have to walk down what we understand to be a pastoral corridor all the way from the northern part of Nigeria, come to the backyard of people's farms, in people's farms to be specific, and graze right there. And when the people come out, they wipe them out. They fight them. Of course, there are instances where the people also have to engage in this violence as a defensive mechanism. It's happened in the southwest. There are scenarios of such in the southwest, in the south, in the southeast. But where are these people coming from? They are coming down from the north. What's my point before you run with it? I am not here in any way trying to say that cattle herders or Fulani herdsmen should not have access to land for grazing in Nigeria. I think that there are rules on what they need to do. And I think in a greater part of it, there is still poor demarcation of these corridors. And even when these corridors are demarcated, these people are not land rights literate such that they know the corridors. But I would think that is common sense that if you push your cattle into people's farms to eat crops out there, you will know you're doing something wrong. Now, is this religious conflict? I think it's linked. The reason is, in Nigeria, whenever there is violence, they push out the religious, lens as a basis for the fight. So sometimes it's just land conflict, but then when the violence comes up, it is the motivation now becomes, or the emotional motivation becomes a religious one. They are Christians, they don't believe in God or the same God you believe in, which, by the way, is complete lie, because it's the same God. Christian, Muslim, is the same God. However, but the ignorance is you don't believe in the same God, and so they sharpen their daggers, they sharpen their knives and their AK-47. Is it 47 or 46? Forgive me, I'm not highly literate on issues of material violence and arms and things like that. So I don't know whether it's AK-47 or 46. You choose whichever one it is. But the point I'm trying to say is that these guys carry this. Now, you cannot suddenly start blaming people in the southern part of Nigeria who cattle rustlers come right at their backyard to eat their crops. So what I'm saying is this has a religious, land, and ethno dimension, but it's difficult to sieve out and disaggregate which one that it is. But there's religion in it. It's even worse in the central part of Nigeria, just Plateau State area, where Hausas, Fulanis are living together with other ethnic groups who are Christians but are not of the predominant main groups in Nigeria. So they are minority up there in the north, and sometimes they get invaded. You heard me right. Invaded. Their own place are invaded. What do you call that? And when they invade, they ask questions like, are you Christian or Muslim? Now, gotta be careful. Is it that they are targeting Christians, or is it that they are targeting non-Muslims? Those are two different things, because there are Christians, there are Muslims, and there are non-Muslims and non-Christians. And I think in the most cases, the report that I've seen, they go for Christians, but non-Muslims, anyone that is non-Muslim is tend to assumed to be Christian, and they suffer the same fate. And these ethnic groups live right at the center of this. I'm still talking about cattle rustling and invasion for land and occupation. These are key aspects of the so-called mass killings in Nigeria. Then there is the one we all know, the Boko Haram. The actual jihadists who speak to us on social media, who talk to us every day, speak to the United States, speak to Europe, speak to Nigeria, speak to everyone out there and say their wish that they want to occupy the country or part of the country and Islamize it. I mean, you can't deny that those things aren't happening. They are there on the social media. The Chibok girls were all stolen, more than 250 of them, and several other minor and micro human invasion and stealing and killing and all that are happening up there. It is targeted against non-Muslims for a start. Now, does that mean Muslims do not suffer? Of course, Muslims suffer. Muslims suffer, and that is where we need to be careful. Muslims that live in Borno State and other parts of Nigeria where these things are happening, who are not in support of it, of course they suffer. They suffer because they live in an environment of fear. They suffer because the AK-47 or AK-46 does not distinguish. The bullets do not ask for your passport or your ID and your ethnic group when they come after you in a mass spray of bullets. So it does get to Muslims. People have to move. People have to run from their ancestral homes. So, back to the issue. When you check the reports in Nigeria, the Christian Association of Nigeria has many times, ever since I've been a teenager, sometimes complained to the government that there has to be something done with all these ethno-religious killings that affect Christians. There is also the Muslim Association who also have their own concerns as well. But it's not okay for people to try to deny the fact that the Christians have been a key target in the northern part of Nigeria. And it has now trickled down through cattle rustling into the southern part of Nigeria. So when President Donald Trump calls out the Nigerian government, I know this man is, I don't know. Look, President Trump, let's just call him what he is. He is, as it appears, the greatest offender and the greatest defender of the free world. The big daddy of Europe, as we would see from discussions about Ukraine-Russia war. The almighty man of the world who wants to exercise the strength and the power of the United States and make everyone feel it. He called out the Nigerian government. Now, does that mean that this guy has love for Christians? I don't think so. I just think that, look, he has an interest and he wants to raise it. But at this point in time, Christians in Nigeria would take anything. They would take anything. If you're going to bring U.S. Marines in the northern part of Nigeria to fight Boko Haram, I don't think the Christians in Nigeria will say no to that. But there's a problem. If the U.S. invades Nigeria on a war, you can be sure that Nigeria has to pay for it. And you know how we're going to pay? Precious stones, rare earth materials, oil. So, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the US invading Nigeria. But it's good that we know that the call or the call out by the US president on what is either going on in Nigeria now or has happened and keeps happening in Nigeria, which the Nigerian government has not really taken accountability for, which they have not done much to protect its own citizen. This man calling out the Nigerian government, I think it's appropriate. It is appropriate, and I think if I were the government in Nigeria, I would look at it this way. There are external interests in the issue in Nigeria, ethno-religious conflicts in Nigeria, and it's a reflection that the Nigerian government has not been doing enough. And with this interest, the Nigerian government should do more. The Constitution of Nigeria allows for Nigerians to associate in any part of Nigeria. It allows that Nigerians can worship the God they choose to worship, whether that God is Jesus Christ, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of Jesus, Virgin Mary, or this Virgin Mary, or, it is allowed. African traditional religion, the Constitution of Nigeria allows that. Yet, which is why there are Sharia rules across the northern part of Nigeria, because they are excising their religious freedom. Others should also exercise their own religious freedom. There are cases where people have gone into churches, jihadists have gone into churches and wiped people out. They are on the internet. They were reported. The Christian Association of Nigeria reported them. So there are killings. A lot of them where Christians are targeted. But I don't want this to now imply that we forget our Muslim brothers, our Muslim sisters. There are killings also in which they are targeted. What about our non-Christian, non-Muslim? Those ones are invisible. They are also targeted. But the truth of the matter is, Christians are normally singled out by jihadists. And such should stop, and the Nigerian government should take responsibility for it. So US, Mr. Trump, I beg you, talk more about this. Push the Nigerian government to do something about it. Please remember, it's not only Christians, there are non-Christians, non-Muslims who are also in Nigeria. As the leader of the free world, I know a lot of people are not happy when it is said in relation to Donald Trump, but that's what it is. As the leader of the free world, please push the Nigerian government to do something about it. But please keep your Marines where they are. We don't need them in Nigeria. We have enough peace in Nigeria despite all of this. However, we need powerful governments across the world, not only in the US, to engage with the Nigerian government to do something to protect its own citizens, who are Christians, Muslims, African traditional religionists, and others. But Christians have always been the main target by the jihadists, and this should not be denied. Protect everyone. Thank you.